Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a vision of Christianity that might just be a little different from what you're used to. We're going to explore the very heart of Eastern Orthodoxy, a path that sees the Christian life not just as a set of rules or, a ticket to heaven, but as this transformative and absolutely endless journey into God Himself. So, let's get into it.
So let's just start with the most basic question of all. What is the ultimate purpose of the Christian life? Now, in many traditions, you're going to hear answers like, to be forgiven for my sins or to go to heaven when I die. And look, those things are true, of course. But in the Orthodox tradition, they're really just the starting line. The ultimate goal is something, it's something way more radical.
This quote from way back in the 2nd century from St. Irenaeus, it just gets right to the point. The whole reason God became human, the whole point of the incarnation, was so that we humans could, in turn, become divine. Not just be with God, but become a real participant in the very life of God. This is the central, audacious claim of Orthodox spirituality. It's a concept called deosis, or deification.
So let's break this down in our first section. We're talking about the goal. It's this idea of theosis, and it totally reframes salvation. It's not a legal transaction, it's a personal transformation. It's an invitation to share in the very life of God.
So, what exactly is theosis? Well, it's the process of deification. It means becoming, by grace, what God is by nature. And as theologians like Gregory Palamas argued, we're not talking about a nice metaphor here. This is a real, personal communion with God. It's a direct experience of His divine life that's meant to transform the entire person.
Okay, and this part is absolutely crucial to get right. Theosis is not about us becoming God by our nature or somehow merging into His essence. That's impossible. We're always going to be creatures. Instead, it means we get to participate in His life, His glory, His love, what the Orthodox call His energies. It's a real union that changes us, body and soul, but without ever erasing who we are.
All right, so if the goal is this incredible, mind-bending transformation, the next question is pretty obvious, right? How? How do we do it? And for the Orthodox Church, the answer isn't something you're going to find in a textbook. It's found in a living, breathing tradition of worship and practice.
This ancient principle, lex orandi, lex credendi, is the key. You've probably heard it. The rule of prayer establishes the rule of belief. In other words, what the church actually does when it gets together to worship, the prayers it says, the songs it sings, the rituals it performs, that is the most real, most authentic expression of what it actually believes. Faith isn't just an idea in your head. It's something that is lived and prayed and experienced together.
And this idea is right at the center of the faith. You look at the work of theologians like Nicholas Kavasilas, and you see that the holy mysteries, what many call the sacraments, they aren't just symbolic reminders of something that happened a long time ago. No way. They are the actual means by which the life of Christ is given to us. This is how we are quite literally united to Him. So this path isn't just one thing. It's a whole life. It starts, fundamentally, with the sacraments like baptism and the Eucharist. That new life is then nurtured in the liturgy, the communal prayer of the Church. And it's cultivated personally through asceticism, that daily struggle of prayer and watchfulness. And finally, the whole journey is inspired by honoring the saints and icons, who are like living proof, windows to heaven, that show us this transformation is actually possible.
Okay, but you might be thinking, hold on a second, how is any of this theologically possible? How can a finite, limited creature unite with an infinite, unlimited creator without just being, poof, destroyed? Well, to explain this incredible mystery, the Church Fathers developed a really sophisticated theological framework, right?
This is the million-dollar question. If God is an all-consuming, infinite fire, how can a person possibly draw close without being completely incinerated? How can we participate in God's divine life without our own personality, our own self, just being totally erased? This was the central paradox that Orthodox theology had to figure out.
And the answer, the whole answer, starts with Christ Himself, the Theanthropos, the God-man. As theologians like Maximus the Confessor explained, Jesus isn't half God and half man. He is one single person who is 100% God and 100% human. In him, the divine and human are perfectly united, without any confusion or change or separation. He is the bridge. And because human nature has already been united to God in Jesus, our own human nature can now also be united to God.
And this brings us back to that massive theological idea, famously defended by St. Gregory Palamas. Orthodox theology makes a distinction between God's unknowable essence, that's who God is in himself, totally beyond us, and his knowable energies. That's how God acts and reveals himself in the world. Think of the sun. We can't touch the star itself, right? That's the essence. But we can feel its light and its heat on our skin. Those are the energies. In the same way, we can really and truly experience God's energies, his grace, his love, his glory, without being consumed by his untouchable essence.
And here's the kicker. These energies, they aren't something other than God. They're not some kind of created buffer zone. They are uncreated. They are God himself in his action, reaching out to us. So when you hear about ancient mystics seeing the uncreated light, they weren't describing a nice symbol of God. They were experiencing God himself in a way that a human being can actually receive and participate in.
So if you put all this together, you get to a really profound and honestly mind-blowing conclusion. If we are uniting with an infinite God through his infinite energies, well, then this process of salvation, this journey of theosis, can have no end. It's not a destination you arrive at. It's an eternal progression.
Listen to how St. Gregory of Nyssa puts it. He says, we can't see the fullness of God's beauty all at once, but only as much as we're able to receive. This suggests that even in eternity, the soul never just stops. It never stops growing or progressing deeper into the mystery of God. The more we're filled with God, the more our capacity to be filled with God grows. It's this ever-increasing, joyful climb into the divine life.
So let's just recap the big takeaways here. The goal of it all? Theosis, real participation in God's life. How do we get there? It's a lived reality through sacraments, liturgy, and personal struggle. How is it possible? Because of Christ, the God-man, and that key distinction between God's unknowable essence and his knowable energies. And what does it all mean? It means salvation isn't a finish line. It's an infinite, glorious journey of transformation.
And so I want to leave you with this question to chew on. If salvation is not a final destination, but an infinite, endless journey into God, what does that mean for a life well lived, for our purpose, for our struggles, for our joys, right here and now? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.